They put in more housing in
Yeah.
the city. They put in lots. I mean,
Yeah.
they have like probably at least 5 times as much housing
Yeah,
as they
that's
have.
very true.
Even more.
Situation is different over there now, isn't it? The people who do,
Well, they don't have any more parking.
no, but it's a different way that you get your pass.
Oh, yeah, you do it online. I have one. You do it online and you don't get a placard. Your license plate is your permit. So you enter your license plate number and then when they're policing the parking lots, they look at license
Yeah.
plate numbers. So I,
That's good and bad. I mean, it makes sense
Yeah.
you have to do that for
Yeah.
every single one. The other is.
yeah, I don't trust them. I put
But
the
that's the
paper
way
seal.
they
in.
do. My parking app is like that.
Yeah,
You know what happened was the last time I parked, I didn't notice that I had a paper license before, when I bought this car.
yeah,
And then I had a real license. Okay, so I got a ticket, but I wrote a letter to the city of Sacramento and they said, it's dismissed, you know, because I've had that app for like 5 years.
wow.
And it's nice because you put in 2 hours and then you go somewhere. In fact, if you have not seen the exhibit at Crocker, you need to go see it. It's wonderful.
Better here.
It is wonderful. The fun cart, the candy store, it is wonderful. It's so
This is
great.
at Crocker? What is it?
Museum. It's called the Candy Store, but it actually is a lot of local artists who ended up teaching at Sac State or at Davis. And they went to school there too, they're graduates, but I mean, they're really well-known artists too. I mean, I went probably 2 weeks ago and you have to have reservations to even go to the Croc. Well, I was going with 3 other women. And actually it was somebody else's idea, but you know what? I wouldn't mind going again because I loved it and I knew a lot of those artists because I dated the guy who owned the Art Foundry and these artists used to
I
come
like this.
and they would stay up all
A
night
little
long.
personal reminder.
Remind us, yeah. I find that you got to put it right up to the mouth. Which is some training I got at one time. I can't remember when, but some public speaking training with microphones.
Really?
I don't know. I
Well,
think.
you do a good job, so I don't see you screwing up. But then you can't see the screen.
Oh, it was like 2 hours.
Can't see. I can't see it. I don't want to sit by it. Don't take it personal. I gotta figure out where I can
That's
sit.
street cleaning. That's street cleaning.
What? Maybe I should sit over
That's street cleaning, yeah.
I can.
there. We need to get-
Can.
Okay, you're not gonna get out of that one.
Too.
Because I was gonna say
There's
some of
coffee in the kitchen. There's some coffee and some groceries.
Perfect.
Oh,
Okay.
no. Oh, no. Have you had it checked out? Oh.
Steve's forehead.
Yes. What's that?
Ash Wednesday.
Nice to see you, sir.
Yeah. Well,
Hello,
I
John.
remember one time saying, "Oh, you have some."
Diane is house
Let me rub
To
it off.
somebody. Yeah, I thought, oh,
physically
oh,
house.
pa.
Oh, geez.
I know.
You're such a doofus.
No, I didn't know until I opened up my phone calendar. It was
Oh, yeah,
everywhere.
yeah. So Betsy, how does Nick pronounce his last name?
Sheber.
As long as, okay.
Yep.
all right. Would you like to introduce him?
Oh.
I'll just open the issue, but you introduce him, okay?
Okay.
Marcus?
Hi, John.
How are you?
Good, good.
Get some dinner?
Yes, and working on the closing on.
Oh, on this one, you have the buyer for the McClatchy house? Congratulations. Wow, there's little desserts in the kitchen, little treats.
Oh, that's what I need, right?
Yeah, everybody needs a little dessert.
Those never came through the, see, Alan and others.
There are 11 online participants, John.
Okay, well, it's getting close to 6 o'clock.
Oscar's there, and I saw Nick is already there. There's Nick.
Okay. So we start?
Oh, it is 6 o'clock, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I'm practicing. It's actually at 6 o'clock, so I thought everybody's here on time. Let's start.
Discuss that.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Gosh.
Well, you can discuss the other one.
Well, I just recruited some people to change light bulbs.
Really?
Oh yeah, we get this
I'm
done.
telling you, we could get enough people to
Oh
do
yeah,
it.
oh yeah. I'm a firm believer that we
I
will.
know my
Well-
Ollie would do it.
So people are saying they actually discussed this already the other day in his alley.
Mary, I think he's called the meeting to order. What's happening here?
Just sing it.
Don't know.
You're welcome.
Glasses.
Good evening, everyone. And welcome to those of you who are here in person and those of you who are here on Zoom. I can't tell you how great it is to be able to meet in person again. Now, the county backed off on that public meeting thing about 2 weeks ago. And so we're able to meet in person for those who want to meet in person. And I think I speak for the rest of the board that we much prefer meeting in person. Just a kind of a, I guess, an update. I checked the county health officer's website this morning, and they have not rescinded their mask mandate for unvaccinated individuals. So just an FYI. If you go on saccounty.net and hit the COVID-19 link, there's a list of the public health orders. And the one that still says unvaccinated, wear a mask is dated February 16th.
Does that include if they've been tested, or is that's just blanket?
That's not even addressed, no.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay, so I think we have an interesting agenda tonight. We also have a special guest. So let me get through a couple of easy things in the beginning. I guess my announcement had to deal with the health department, so I'm pretty much done making a president's announcement and welcoming everyone to be here in person. We did have an executive session this afternoon from 1 to about 2:30, where we discussed contract kind of issues and member payment issues, kind of those things that you can discuss in executive session. So before we go into the general session, we have a guest. And I'm looking at you, Nick Schubert. There you are. You are currently muted. So when you're ready to talk, you're going to off. There you go.
Thank you.
Nick is from Carson Landscaping. And Nick, I've not met you before, but I understand one of your strengths is irrigation.
It is.
Nick made a presentation to the grounds committee, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and I was not able to attend. So the grounds committee thought it would be wise for Nick to actually make a presentation to the whole board and the owners who attend the meeting on the work that he has done on our irrigation and where he sees improvements for our irrigation. So Nick, welcome. You have the floor, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for having me here for what can be a pretty involved subject. But I think it's something that we want to look at as your discussions go on deeper into ways to conserve water. Everyone's talking about that nowadays. And it's an important subject. So I know the community has had recent discussions about water conservation. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understands some things that you have in your community as you're talking about water conservation. And some of the ways that we as landscape managers or I guess water managers, we are sometimes some of the ways we look at what can be done to save water. There's many ways to do it, and I just want to discuss a little bit of that with you tonight. Do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes.
All right. So just to give, I want to start out with a little base information so everyone's kind of, as I talk about some of these things, you understand what I'm talking about. So I want to go into some of the irrigation types that you have in your community. These are what we call overhead irrigation. They're pop-up sprinkler heads that disperse the water in different ways. One of the styles that you have is what we call spray irrigation, pop-up spray irrigation. And that's pretty much what everyone thinks of when you think of sprinklers. They're what's been around for, I'm not sure for how long that this particular head was developed and the type of nozzle that's on them. They have been used forever. Rainbird's kind of been the mainstay that everybody's kind of duplicated. And you do have these on your property. They're considered high volume output at very low efficiency and low uniformity. So what that means is they put a lot of water out really fast. They're not very efficient at doing it. So water kind of goes more than where it's supposed to. And it's not that uniform, meaning that all areas don't get the same amount of water. So you tend to get different dry spots or wet spots just because the heads don't put out very uniformly. And I like to refer to this when you're comparing this to other styles of irrigation heads, that this is a downpour. When you use these type of heads, it's just pouring down rain and the water's going out very fast. It's interesting that when they designed these way back when, the output of these heads exceeds the rate at which the soils that we have can absorb the water. So if you run them for too long, the water can't soak into the soil fast enough and it tends to run off. So they're considered a big water waster nowadays. And the newer style, and you have these on your community as well. We call them rotary nozzle.
Nick?
Yes.
This is Mary Gray. Do you have any, like the percentage of the number of sprinklers that we have, like each one of these are? So we would have a feel for like what's out there in our community?
I don't have that for you today, but I certainly can get that for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next would be the rotary irrigation. So there's been a big push over recent years to switch to these style nozzles. They're pretty recognizable. They have these streams of water and they slowly kind of rotate. If you compare it to the first one, which is a high volume, these are a lower volume output, which means they don't put the water out as fast. Their efficiency is considered in the medium range and their uniformity is medium as well. So in my rain scenario, that would be more considered a light rain application. The application of these tends to be less than the rate at which the soils can absorb them. So they're a lot better at it, and they are less affected by wind. So you don't get as much off-site movement of water, and they tend to distribute the water more uniformly as well. And then the next style that you have are rotors. They're pretty recognizable as well. It's a single stream of water that shoots out, and then the whole head rotates that stream of water. That's also considered a low volume head, and it has similar characteristics with the medium efficiency and medium uniformity. Also would be considered a light rain. So in overhead irrigation, the two preferred methods for the best use of water would be the rotor and the rotary nozzle. And just in general speaking, I'd say your your spray irrigation is probably in the lower 20% when you look at your overhead. Majority of them were converted pretty well, but there's still some out there. And then we look at drip. So at some point in time, your community put in this style that we call inline drip. It's most prevalent around all the homes. So there's basically a single tube that snakes around the landscape areas, and it has holes basically every so many inches where water drips out of it and makes the area wet. If you run it long enough, these wet areas kind of coalesce together. And if you were to dig down below the surface of this, like in this where it shows it dry right here, it's actually wet because the water soaks in as it goes down. So it might look like it's not getting everything wet, but underneath the soil it is. So this is kind of a way we do it for a landscaped area. You could have plants put in throughout here, or here's how we handle them on trees. It's a very good slow application of water. It's very highly efficient, meaning there's not a lot of runoff. So the water that's applied, most of it goes into the soil and it's used by the plants. This type of drip is considered a low maintenance drip versus what would be what some people think of a more traditional. This is watering a pepper. So sorry, it's not a landscape plant, but still applicable. But basically you have a single tube running around, and everywhere there's a plant that you have this, what we call spaghetti tubing with a drip emitter at the end of it. You don't really have that on your property, which is kind of good from our perspective, because this stuff takes a lot of maintenance to keep this stuff. It breaks easily, things get clogged easily. There's just a lot of trouble with these. So we don't have a lot of this going on. Most of it, all the drip you have is with the inline drip. Are there any questions about these basic irrigation types and the types that you have? All right, great. So I'm just going to jump into a map here. So here's a kind of a overview of your property, of your different zones. I'm going to pinpoint here on zone number 2, which I have highlighted in yellow, just kind of give you a reference point. So we're going to jump over here and kind of zoom in on that. So here's that zone 2. If we could see the clubhouse would be up over here. And the way this works is, this is a result of the mapping that we've been working on for you guys. We have all your zones mapped in this manner. And I'll zoom in so you can see it better. I know it's very small. The green areas are turf areas. The orange are just shrub, ground cover, trees, basically anything but turf. And then as I zoom in here, the numbers are the station numbers. So a valve, we call a valve a station in the kind of the irrigation world. So that valve is attached to the controller via a wire. And when we turn on number 7, for instance, then all the sprinklers attached to that valve will turn on. So the numbers here is that station number. The color of the numbers, the black ones are over anything that's overhead spray irrigation, whether it's the 3 types, the rotor, the rotary nozzle, or the overhead spray. And then the white is, I'll zoom in some more. The white is the inline drip. So when you did your irrigation system, they did a good job of putting the inline drip surrounding all the homes. I would imagine that's to keep down the water from hitting homes. So that's a good thing. And the plant material is kind of conducive to having that as well. So in this case here, when we turn on zone number 8, All of these beds with the number 8 on them get water at the same time through that drip tubing system that's going on through this area. So this particular one, zone 8, is a pretty big zone. If we come down to this little area here, zone number 2 is a much smaller footprint. For this one, they had zone 3 did just this side of the houses, and then zone 5 did this side of the houses. Do I have any questions so far?
Nick, I have a question. This is Betsy.
Yes.
So what's watering behind those? Oh, those are the private patios. I see.
In the middle here?
1020. Yeah, in the
Yes.
middle.
Yeah,
That's the
these are your
private- okay.
garages, and these are the private patios.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Nick,
Yes.
this is Marcus Dasher. I have a question regarding the ones that I see there. You have green,
Yes.
and then you have orange.
Yes.
So that means you have turf and you have shrubs, and they are on the same valve. They're
Correct. So-
watered at the same time.
Correct. That's exactly what I wanted to get to once we got to that point. So thank you. I'll jump to that. So just looking at zone number 1 here, this is a mixed, that valve has heads that pop up on all of this area at the same time. So it is, like he pointed out, a mix of turf and shrub or ground cover. I can't remember what the plant material is. It could be ivy and trees, or it could be mixed plants, various things. So when we have to run the zone for a certain number of minutes to give the highest water use plant material on that zone. So in this case, our turf is the highest water use plant material. So we have to turn that valve on for, let's say, 40 minutes to get it wet enough for the turf to get the amount of water that it needs. And at the same time, the plant material is getting that same amount of water and as often. So that was the biggest concern that I see as a water manager, is a standard irrigation practice and standard irrigation design is that you never mix what we call hydrozones, but you never mix plant material that have differing water needs on the same valve. It's just not something you normally would do. If you're designing something brand new, that's a no-no, and even the state rules now prohibit it. You cannot mix plants in hydrozones. Even if you had all shrubs, let's say you had some drought-tolerant natives that don't need water that often, you can't put them in the same irrigation valve as something that needs a lot more water. So that's a big concern for us when we talk water conservation, is you're applying a much more amount of water to all this hatched area than is needed. And that's pretty prevalent throughout your property. It's not just an isolated case. Yes.
So I have 2 questions. One is there a difference between just the plain orange and the grid orange, or is
Yeah,
that?
the grid oranges are area that I've highlighted as where it's crossed. It's a mix.
Oh, okay.
They're both
Yeah.
watered by.
Oh, so they're both bought by one. Okay. And then the other question I have is, say, for example, all the 2s are drip irrigation.
Yep.
And we don't know what the two oranges that are 1, whether they're drip or whether they're one of the rotary.
No,
type
they are the rotary.
They are the rotary.
Yeah.
Is it possible to connect rotary with drip?
No.
Okay.
The output of the water is different and the run times are different. So that's kind of one of the second rules of irrigation 101 is you never mix your distribution method on the same valve, because they need different run times to apply the water that you need.
Nick, another director would like to ask you a question. Ashley is
Yes.
on Zoom. Go ahead, Ashley.
She's muted.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm muting myself. Just something, I'm fully in support of addressing this. I think it's great, but In doing so, like, for example, here, this might not be the best example in our community, but we've got that mix, we've got the same valve. Instead of, kind of creating two valves or separating them by hydrozone, would it be possible that there might be some opportunities to get rid of some of the grass at the same time?
Yeah, so there's varying situations and ways to handle problems like this. And I think what's chosen as the way to handle it is going to be dependent on each area.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to move up here, find it like here, this number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because you got this bigger piece of 4, but yeah, so there might be a small area of turf that you could eliminate and make it all shrub.
Okay.
Might be a choice. So it really, I think to solve this, we have to look at each area and look at the right way to solve it. Down here, it's possible for these ones maybe to take the drip line that's part of 2 and run it into all this number 1 and abandon cap all the heads that are here in 1 and just take the drip tube and bring it out into all this one area is a way to do it. Okay. So I think if we were going to look at trying to solve some of these, each one would have to be taken in a case-by-case basis to look at the desired, what do you want out of your landscape in this area? Do we want to eliminate or change the plant material, or do we want to change the irrigation method? Or the other third option is to put in 2 valves. One valve would do the green ones and one valve would do the orange ones. Each one of those are possibilities that have to be looked at individually.
All right, thank you.
Certainly. So the other thing to think about when you have situations like this, or even this, which is done correctly. Well, no, let's go over here. So all these 8s, let's say you decided you want to renovate the alleyway right here and you want to put in drought tolerant plants here to save water. If you don't change the plant material out here that's also getting watered by the number 8, then you're not really going to be saving any water, because you have to water for the higher water use that exists out in these areas while you put in lower water use plants here. So you almost have to convert. If you want to try to put in low water use plants, you have to look at the whole number 8 as your renovation area if you want to do it for water conservation purposes. So that's another thing I'd like you to consider as you're thinking about what you're going to do. Let's just put in some drought tolerant plants. It's not quite that simple if you want to really save water.
Is it possible, Nick, to, I don't know, I'm picturing like little shutoff valves or things that would restrict the amount of water coming through, say 8, on certain portions of the line. Is there such a thing that can do that?
Not really. So when you irrigate, you want to thoroughly wet the root zone of a plant. And it takes a certain amount of time to do that. Even if you have drought tolerant or low water use plants, with low water use plants, you just do it less often, but you still want to run the zone for the same minutes as a plant that needs more water. You just do it more frequently. So you can't really restrict the water because you need to thoroughly wet the root zone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
And as we're talking water conservation too, and we're talking drought tolerant or low water use plants, I want to just point out that drought tolerant and low water use plants tend to have a certain look to them. It's kind of more of a Mediterranean, drier look plant. The plants actually, a lot of them are kind of a duller green. They're not real bright and vibrant. And as you're trying to create looks and save water, that drought tolerant or low water use plant may not be the look you want, but we can save you water that you want to save by converting and fixing some of these other things and still let you use some plant material that might be a little more attractive to you. And also certain plants get put on those drought tolerant lists that they look great when they get lots of water, but when they go into that drought tolerant stage, they don't look very good for that period of time. But when the water is restored to them, when drought is no longer an issue and water is restored to normal, the plant is able to regrow without dying. But during that time of low restricted water, they don't look so good. So I want you to keep that in mind too, as you're choosing plant material, that there's a lot of plants on the plant lists that just survive the drought, but they don't necessarily look good during the drought.
I have a quick question, just as far as drought tolerant plants, you know, you're pretty familiar with our landscaping. Let's say you were to redo all the 8s for the drought tolerant, kind of what % savings of water would it be for that valve? Would it be like just 20, or is it significant, like 50? Do you have any idea?
So California has broken down, and there's a pretty good resource that is referred to. The acronym is WOCOLS, the WOCOLS. And it's specific to California, and it breaks plants down by their % of normal need of water. So they have 100% that there's plants that need 100% of the amount of water that's lost. There's plants that need 70%. There's plants that need, I think it goes to 50 and then 30. And there's different plants in each of those categories from this 100 to 70 and so on. So the number of plants that are in that 20% range or 30% range is a very small, if you just want to say a handful of plants, it's more than that, but it's a handful of plants that can sustain that. You much open up your plant usage if you get into that 50 to 70% range. So you could maybe save 30% compared to what's considered high water 100% need. If you stick to that 50 to 70% list.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Nick, in
about that.
comparing, not just shrubs, but we have a lot of turf.
Yes.
So, and what the water usage of turf compared to shrubs, I'm sure it's on that site as well.
Yeah, the turf type that you have, and there's different turfs out there. The turf type that you have mostly out in your property is just considered, a lot of it's kind of what we call in the industry junk grass. It's just old. It's been overtaken by just more wild turf varieties. A lot of it's bluegrass, bent grass, and ryegrass. Those and some of it has to do with your shade too. But those grasses tend to root very shallow rooted, maybe in the 1 to 2 inch range of the soil depth. So any dryness in that 1 to 2 inches, the turf will start to stress. And so in the summertime, that 1 to 2 inch will dry out in a day. So you'll start to see, if we don't water it daily, you'll start to see areas start to turn brown. So that the grasses you have are considered high water use because we have to water them so frequently. Some of the other grasses that we are trying to introduce are the turf type tall fescues, or we call them dwarf fescues. If managed properly, they can root more into the 3 and 4 inch range. So the roots can go and draw to a deeper depth. We don't have to water them as frequently. And then you have your Bermuda grasses and things that can kind of, they exist when it gets dry, but they don't really die. And there's some wild grasses that are trying to be used nowadays, but it comes back to that low water use. And I know I only had 15 minutes, so hopefully I don't get the plug here. this is a big subject, but some of those drought tolerant grasses and turf varieties that are promoted out there, they just, when you put them in that drought condition, they just still look poor. They still look brown. But they don't die. And as soon as you get the water back to them, they'll regrow and look green again.
Okay, I know you're limited and I'm probably asking too many questions, but the other question I have is on drought tolerant. Now we talked about shrubs, but I'm sure there are ground covers as well that we could use, aren't there?
Yes, we've talked about that in the grounds meeting. I did kind of give some of my opinions on some of the ones that are being discussed. It really comes down to what is the use you want of that area when you're looking at ground cover. Do you still want to be able to, like, if you have a turf area and you want to convert it, do you still want to be able to walk on that area and use it like you would use turf? If the answer is yes, then the ground cover that's chosen would be different. If you just want to convert that turf to something like an ivy, but not necessarily ivy, but you're not going to walk on it and put traffic on it, then that plant material is different. But I would tell you that I could save you a lot more water if you put in shrubs that are planted spaced out versus a ground cover. Because when you're irrigating a ground cover, you got to irrigate the whole square footage. When you're irrigating plantings where the plants are spaced out, you could isolate water to where the plant is, and a lot of the square footage doesn't need to get watered. So we can create a less consuming landscape with spaced out plantings than ground cover.
Okay, one more question. So that the drip irrigation that we're using has, I'd say, holes at a certain distance apart, right?
Correct.
So you can base plantings on that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the intent of that is that let me just go back to that picture. And I have as much time to give you as you guys want to give me. So I'm not limited, but I know you have.
Yeah, I'm going to cut you off for in a couple of minutes.
Okay, so looking at this again, the design of this is that you could put a plant in anywhere along this route and it would get water because it's wet under the soil. It's not dry like this directly down below. So if I was designing this, I would make sure I have plants throughout here. If I'm just going to put a plant here and a plant here, I would just put a ring of this drip tube around this plant and a ring of drip tube around this plant and make sure only that area is watered.
Wasn't Netafim actually invented for turf? Wasn't that the
I don't know that it was invented for that. It was something they tried to put into use for turf. But there's many reasons why it doesn't work very well that I could get into if you wanted to, but it generally is not an effective irrigation method for turf.
Okay.
Nick, we could talk about this for a long time. It's super interesting and I really appreciate your time. Unfortunately, we have a business meeting to conduct. So unless you have.
That is all. So I just keep in mind as you're having discussions amongst yourselves about water conservation that this does exist. This is something that could be looked at. We could do a full study and try to come up with a plan for you if you guys want. And just keep that in mind as you're having discussions about water savings. The discussion is much more complex than just saying, let's change the plans.
Sure. Okay. Nick, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay for our meeting, but we'll probably bore you to death. So
Yeah,
if you check out, we will understand.
All right.
Thank you.
This is Oscar. I just want to add up something if I can.
Sure, Oscar.
Sure. The only thing that I just want to add into it, so you guys probably may asking yourselves, like, what we doing right now to try to solve some of these situations right now that we have. So at this point of time, so what we're doing basically Nick knows about this. So if we're running the Netafim for 30 minutes, we have the ability to do cycle timing on that and soaking time. So that means that if I running it for 30 minutes, it will run for 10 minutes and then wait another like 2 hours, 120 minutes. So it can run again for another 10 minutes. So that basically also saves any runoffs or anything like that. I just want to add that into it so you guys know what we're doing on top of that too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar.
I would just want to say something really quick. Oscar made those brownies in the kitchen. So thank you, Oscar.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you. guys.
You're multi-talented. Okay, let's Nick,
Okay.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Again, you're welcome to stay on. You probably put you to sleep though, so. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Just
Let's
a
move on with the rest of the meeting if we can. So that we can be a little bit efficient with our time. I'm not going to call on committee chairs unless they have something to say. So any committee chairs who have something they want to add, you're free to do it. Otherwise, we're going to keep going. Hearing none. Okay. Betsy, you have a management report briefly?
I have the management report in your packets. So, Ken, did you want to address the board?
I just wanted to comment on the one.
ARC Chair. Ken
This
Luttrell.
is Ken Luttrell, Chairman of the ARC.
Yes, this is the month of the architectural applications for windows. That's all we had were windows, 7 of them.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to comment on the one on the consent calendar. You see 206 Dunbarton Circle. We had not submitted a recommendation for approval.
Understand you have now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we since have done
Sure.
so, but
Yeah.
I think maybe Betsy has filled you in on what
She
happened
has.
there. Okay.
Yeah, so that
Right.
approval is also on the consent.
If you have any questions of me, I'm here.
Thanks, Ken.
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay. It's time for the homeowner forum.
Wait, are we going to do the management report? Are we going to?
My management report is in the packet, but if any of the directors have questions for me,
Well,
I'm happy.
I just wanted to point something out to everyone because I know we got a comment the other day about the different cable internet providers, which, but it was just interesting to see the revenue we got, the kickback from, was it Comcast?
Correct.
The
Yeah.
60, I mean, it'd be pretty committed, significant if we lost that, but I can see why the other providers really don't want to give us a big kickback to be here. So
Yeah. It
just wanted
does
to
seem
point
like
that
it
out
would
to
help
everyone.
them have more business if they wanted to participate in, having access to the underground, but
Yeah,
I guess they don't feel that way.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
thanks.
I see Jahal's hand raised, and I'm going to assume that's for the homeowner forum.
Yes, hi, it's John Haller.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
We're
John.
May I,
logging in.
let me set the ground rules here first.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to speak, not only on this forum, but the one afterwards, and on any agenda items, frankly, you're welcome to speak. Just want to be courteous, concise, and we'll keep you to 3 minutes maximum. Okay, so
John Holler.
John Hall. Oh, that's Jahal. Okay.
Yes.
John, would you
Hi.
like to speak?
Yes, thanks. And I was going to ask or bring this up anyway, but the statement just made about the cable service payments. I've recently read, and I'll find a link and pass it on to Betsy, that the FCC is, I don't know what the term to use, cracking down on those types of arrangements that HOAs have with the cable companies as anti-competitive. So I don't know where they are in that process, but while I agree it's a lovely source of revenue to have, it may not be something we can count on in the future. And my concern on the other side of it is, I think having a better internet service is in our interest, not just because of its the abilities it gives us, but for, you know, the old property value pitch. You know, it's kind of a basic essential these days, along with running water, that you have good internet service. And ours is okay, certainly not great, and there's a lot of better options out there if they were willing to provide service to us. The other side, the other aspect of it too, is that a number of companies, Verizon included, are going to wireless internet. So basically you have a modem in your house that's like connects to the cell phone towers. It's not wired internet anymore. And its speeds are better than what we currently have through Comcast. So again, the revenue we're currently getting may not be a sustainable venture for us going forward because of a variety of options, FCC opposition, other wireless alternatives becoming available that are going to make wired internet obsolete. So no question, just those comments.
All right, thank you, John. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak? No, how about folks who are in the room? Anyone want to speak at the homeowners forum? Yes, sir. Please stand up and use the microphone and introduce yourself.
You can move the microphone a little bit.
Yeah.
I know it's right up against their knees.
Hi, I'm Ricardo Pineda. I'm at 1013 Dunbarton, and I spoke at the last meeting. I had one observation and two requests. So one was related to the spa and the amount of heat loss overnight, and if there was any consideration for putting not a heavy cover, but a thermal cover. So, I mean, you know, we're trying to help our climate, use less energy, and these floating thermal covers, I think, are not that expensive, and they potentially could save energy. So I'm wondering if there's any follow-up to that I brought up.
We addressed that at the last meeting. The county does not allow those in a public setting.
Yeah,
It's
they
a-
will permit certain types, and they sent me the handout of what it is. The problem with the ones that they permit, they have to be manually removed or remote, you know, that you can use machinery, but it has to be done by somebody who's actually on site to do it. So we have access, you know, for homeowners between the hours of when I go home at 6 until 10 p.m. I wouldn't be able to at 10 p.m. put that cover on there. So that's part of the problem as well.
Yeah, my sense was that a security guard, I've been here at 10 o'clock and he walks through. So that was my thought.
Yeah, and they're anchored. They have anchors. They have to be anchored down. You have to get approval from the building department and yeah. But it is an option.
Ricardo, you had a second thing you wanted to
Second thing was I brought up at the last meeting the potential benefits for striping bicycle lanes along Commons Drive. And while it's a city street and the city doesn't potentially need the board's approval, it's always nice to be on the same page. And I mentioned that I cycle a lot, and I think the width of Commons Drive is near the width of University, east of the Howe Avenue Bridge. And I think it would be an improvement to public safety. A lot of runners don't like to run on the sidewalk. I can't run anymore with bad knees, but I cycle a lot. And I actually think it would be an improvement to aesthetics. So I know I sent Betsy a link to the city's transportation website and wonder if there was any follow-up on that.
There was actually, when we were in executive session today, I got a voicemail from Anthony Grace from the City of Sacramento's traffic engineering, just calling in regard to requests for bike lanes on Commons Drive. You know, we looked into it, and unfortunately we can't add bike lanes on Commons Drive due to the road, in that there isn't enough space to have the travel lanes, parts and lanes and bike lanes. Sorry, this is a transcript of a voicemail. I believe right now it's currently identified as a bike route instead. So basically, you know, bicycles can utilize the roadway. And then he left his phone number for further questions. So,
Okay. Well, I'd like to get that phone number later on, Betsy. I'll send you an email and
oh, sure.
maybe I'll give him a call. So I have a little bit of experience in
Sure.
transportation engineering. So thank you.
But more water, right? Okay, thank you, Ricardo. Good points. Someone else? Okay, let's move on to, we have one homeowner correspondence. We can bring that up. We really don't need to read it. Linda, did you want to address this?
I will address it, or is this on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will address it, or I'm going to ask Ken if he would like to address it. Ken, this is the homeowners correspondence. Do you want to address this?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
It involved windows that were observed on 2 different residences that the owner, the person wrote the letter, was aware that they were not within criteria of Nepenthe and wondered if we were granting exceptions for those kinds of windows. And Discovery, Betsy looked into it, Alan Water looked into it, and because he has a very good history of applications we processed, and neither window had been installed with an application. So we didn't, the type of exception that the writer of the letter was concerned about, we do not grant those kind. Any questions?
No, Betsy, I guess we were going to pursue that.
Yeah, we're going to pursue, see that he applies hopefully for that window that he put in without approval. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, we've come to the consent calendar. I assume the board members have looked at this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items from the consent calendar. Any questions from the board, or shall we just approve?
Well, if we approve, and I think we discussed this today at executive session, on the architectural approvals, the very last one, 206, has been approved. And Ken did bring that up tonight.
So consider the word approval in
So
this
if-
slot.
Do you want me to make a motion?
Yes, please.
Are we
Okay.
just talking about the architectural approvals at this?
No,
point?
we're talking about the whole
Consent.
consent
No.
calendar.
Are we talking about the ones dealing with remediation and the proposal?
No,
for-
the consent
no.
calendar.
It's only
is
the
just
consent.
checking.
Just the
Yeah,
consent
it's just,
calendar.
well, let's, but
Just the
let,
consent calendar.
yeah, minutes, financial statements, architectural approvals, lien resolution, replacement of Bill Endicott on the nominating committee by Will Vizard, and the nominating committee report. Those are the items on the consent calendar.
So I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
I have a second. Second by Marcus. Any objection from anyone?
No.
All right, without objection, approved. Okay, unfinished business. Betsy, we have I guess a little bit of a kerfuffle that we can fix here at 1329 Vanderbilt. Can you
Oh, right.
kind of let us know about this?
Yeah, it's just a change order. When Critical Path Reconstruction submitted their bid last month, they actually did not have full access to the patio area. So their bid was pretty low in comparison to JWS, whose bid was $11,088. Since then, CPR has been back out on the site. They haven't started working. They did discover that they missed quite a bit of dry rot in the patio and on the garage building. And so they are asking for a change order. Now, the change order plus the original proposal still comes in at less than the original JWS proposal. So their revised proposal is $9,370.49 payable from reserves.
Is this, are we going to use the new siding on this?
It is for the DuraTemp siding.
Excellent. Okay, good. Okay. May I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second by Mary. Any objection? Without objection, approved. Okay. Item B, charge heirs with reviewing exterior paint options. Mary, would you like to
Sure, I can
give some
address this.
background on this? Yeah.
Yeah, so for several months, Ashley and I have been researching colors since we're going to be repainting Nepenthe, starting with Dunbarton Circle. And we're working with Kelly Moore to get the boards so everyone can see the slight variations that we will be proposing. Problem in delivery. The boards were supposed to be here on Friday. They didn't arrive. There was hope they might make it today. They didn't.
FedEx is sleeping.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let all of you know that we're on target to have them, hopefully tomorrow. But what we'd like to do is first show them to the Architectural Review Committee, and that meeting is on the 10th. And then we're going to have them on display at the clubhouse. So anyone who would like to see the color that we're proposing for the first phase, which is Dunbarton Circle, can come in and have a look.
Yeah, I've seen some of these, and you know, they're not very different from what we've got, honestly, but they're more pleasant, I think.
Well, we're trying to honor the architectural design, but update it so that it's more current. That's the way I'll put it. So there's slight changes. And I think, well, you'll be able to come and take a look for yourselves.
And the Architectural Review Committee is an open committee meeting. And I don't know, are we back to meeting in person, Ken? Are we back to meeting in person?
Yes.
For architectural? Okay, so Thursday, it will be in here. And if you'd like to join us, it's at 5:30, the 10th. It's the 10th.
Thursday,
Not
the 10th.
tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. Yes, at 5:30.
Yeah.
And it's also on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and we have two homeowners that have raised their hand on this topic, Pat Singer and John Holler.
Pat Singer, would you like to address this issue?
So as a member of the ARC committee, I'd like to know if anybody tried those paints, the sample on the new siding, just to see how it absorbs in, et cetera.
No,
I would suggest that
How that
might
would
be
be
a good
possible.
test.
That'll be a good thing for you to talk about at the ARC
Sure,
meeting.
that's a
Okay.
great idea. Yeah. Thank
All
you.
righty. I will raise it then.
John Hall, you had your hand up again?
Yeah, sorry, I just forgot to lower it from before. Sorry.
Well, don't let that happen again.
Duly reprimanded. Thank you.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
I had an interior design business for 30 years, and I guess my feeling about color and so on, most people, I think, came in here because they love the feel of the neutral sort of colors that are going on. I think it's really important that you have a large area that you paint and you can move it around, either a piece of this siding that you're talking about, and because it's very deceptive on outside paint. What you see is not what you actually see at a distance.
True.
And so it's imperative that you have large sections that you can really put out there and look, and you change them. Another thought that I had was many people have over the years taken the color of their condo or house, and they've used it as the primary color in their patio. And then talking about furniture and so on. So, you know, just it's hard for people to change over sometimes to a very different coloring because they really invested a lot in what's happening inside.
and just to address that, but I think Ashley will
Ashley.
too.
Yeah, we're not looking at any major change, and it just going more toward the taupe versus we've got some areas here that are, I don't even want to say the word of what it looks like, but but anyway, just being a little bit more contemporary, and I will say across the different product lines, whether we looked at Kelly Moore, whether we looked at, Sherwin-Williams, there might be trying to come up with 5 or 6 colors. There'd be 3 I really liked here, 2 I really liked there. And unfortunately, we have to stick to the brand. So it's, I have to see the boards and how they turned out, but it's going to be an improvement. I'm not going to say it's going to be, perfect. So, but it'll be an improvement. I think it's really going to make us look a little bit more up to date and a little more current instead of dated like we look right now. It looks a little tired.
Thanks.
So
Thanks.
Judy, can you come to the meeting on the 10th? I'll come pick you up.
Well, and Judy, just so you know, when we were looking at the colors, we went out into the community to find homes painted in them.
Yeah.
So just like you said, really, and because lighting and color and all of that. So we made a big effort to actually go and see them.
And it looks different on cloudy days. And we took the paint chips, like, on the south side, and then
We
took it
have
on the
another
west.
speaker. Can we,
Okay.
yeah. Yes.
Hi, I wanted to say that as a relatively new homeowner here, one of the reasons that we moved here is because the housing here blends with the natural environment. And so what I'm concerned about is making sure that whatever choice is made continues to maintain what makes this a really special community, which is that it is situated in nature and feels like it's part of nature.
So no baby blue.
Well, these are in the same, I mean, as John said, he could hardly tell the difference.
Yeah.
So
I-
they are different.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is because all of us who have, bought into the community have a real investment in it, for a decision that's this significant to the owners, I would think it would be appropriate for owners to be able to actually vote on the choice of colors. I don't know if that's possible. I realize we have an architectural review committee, but I just think that if the colors are very different, if they blend, and I mean, I wish we could have seen them, but
You will, they'll be here.
Yeah, we're not anywhere near painting homes.
okay, good. That's very reassuring. Thank
We
you.
have a whole process to go through, which will include not only the committee, but these will be displayed here at the clubhouse to look at and weigh in on.
Great, thank you.
And since I've not met you and you didn't introduce yourself, what's your name?
I'm Judith Jones,
Thank you, Judith.
and you don't remember my name.
Pardon me?
You don't remember my name.
Judith Jones. I was saying there's another person speaking, wants to speak.
Ricardo?
Ricardo Pineda again. So my question is just kind of more of a technical one. I'm assuming before you paint the exterior of any home, like the one I have on Dunbarton, which has some dry rot pointed out in
It's
the,
a multifaceted project. The siding gets fixed first and then it gets painted.
okay, you've answered my question.
Sure. I'm sorry I cut you off, but I saw where you were going. Okay, so we have
New business.
we have an item here to the board to submit this to the Architectural Review Committee for their review. May I have a motion to do that?
Oh, I so move.
Mary moved.
Did you just move?
I did.
I second.
Any objection? Without objection, that's approved.
Okay, sorry, I was
Okay.
jumping the gun
now,
there.
new
And
business.
right into
Um,
dry rot repairs.
Yeah, and Ricardo, before you go, here's, well, you'll be interested, and this is the first step in what we were just talking about. The first thing that needs to be done is we need to have somebody kind of inspect our homes so we can kind of scope out how much siding we have to fix in this first phase. We do it in yearly phases. So this particular agenda item is to hire someone, and actually this is someone who has done a lot of our siding work, to actually do an inspection. Now, they're not going to inspect every inch, so they kind of do a scoped area and give us some idea about what kind of number, size, how many square feet, give us a feeling for how many square feet of siding we're looking at replacing, because we have to budget for that. Okay, so that's that. Betsy, you want to?
Yeah. Oh, and here is the proposal from James E. Williams. So they're proposing to inspect 170 units, one pool house in phase one, which is basically all of Dunbarton Circle. They will identify dry rot per elevation, so they'll be labeled so that the people bidding for the big job itself will know where to, confirm JWS's findings. There will be all of these items. They'll be noting trim in lineal feet, siding material per piece, fencing material will be noted as lineal feet, plant life will be noted on the report, and unsafe structures will be noted and recommended for removal. Sometimes homeowners don't like to hear that, but they need to. And JWS needs to note if it's unsafe so that nobody relies on it for support.
And Betsy, the result of this would be used for scope of work for taking bids to actually have the work done?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Because we need to let the contractors know what they're going to price.
Right. And they actually will, I think this is their usual legalese. I thought there was, oh, no, it goes right into lighting report. Okay. One of the things that they said was that this price of $96,0870, if they should be selected to do the repairs afterwards, this would be credited towards that larger.
So if there's a successful bidder,
Right.
we can get this back.
Right.
Okay. All
Oh,
right.
wow.
Any comments from any of the board members? Any comments from anybody on Zoom or in the room? All right, may I have a motion to approve this?
I move that we approve the proposal from JWS for the inspection of the phase one units.
I second.
All right, any objections from any of the board members?
No.
Without objection, that's approved. Okay, next item, lighting recommendation from the ILS committee. Let me just kind of briefly describe this. The ILS committee, this Insurance, Legal, and Safety Committee, has done a lot of work, thanks to Peter Pelkover, who is raising your hand, please, Peter.
Yeah.
Hello, raise your hand.
Thank you.
And actually doing a lot of review. A lot of this came out of our safety forum a couple of months ago. The recommendation here from the ILS committee is to change out bulbs in the lollipop lights to give us better illumination. The side benefit is that I understand these use less energy as well. Is that right?
Peter, the bulbs use less energy? The
The-
bulbs use less energy?
Yeah, okay, all right, okay. So,
Well,
I
we all
know.
do.
yeah, we do, yeah.
It's
Well, the best
So
place to look,
Judy, there's one in front of my house.
yep, and there's one in front of my house.
One in front of my house.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
People in Zoom can't hear.
He's basically talked about the specs and the lumens, so we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Well, the recommendation from the ILS committee is that we approve doing this retrofit. I guess I have a couple of questions. And Peter, can you hear me? What's this going to cost? How are we going to pay for it? When are we going to do it? And in what phases are we going to do it?
we purchased the bulbs that I had recommended
Closer.
and the
Close it.
committee.
Hold it up to your mouth. It's on.
But you
It's
just
on.
have to have it
Just hold it,
close.
hold it right like this. Hold it up to your mouth.
That's
Now,
gonna-
is it working now?
Yes.
Okay. If we purchase the bulbs that are recommended, they're $7.50 per bulb. That is from Amazon, which is the cheapest place I could find them. There are 630 lollipops. You can do the math, but it's a little over, it's somewhere about $4,700 for the bulbs.
And then we have labor on top of that.
And then you have to obviously go around, take the globes off, which is very simple to do, unscrew the bulb and put in a new one.
Okay.
So, you know, it can be, you can hire someone that do that. It has been suggested to me that we might consider having a bulb changing party for the.
That
You
begs
know
the
what,
question,
Peter?
how
It was
many
something we
Nepenthians?
discussed today.
Yeah.
And I think I live on an alley where I think everybody in my alley would help with that kind of a process, because it would be very, very laborious and expensive to the association
Well, I
to hire somebody to
understand
replace
from
700
Betsy that
bulbs.
it was like $5,000 the
And by
last
the
time
way,
it was
I
done.
love the bulb in front of my house.
Okay. And
No, it's right by the sidewalk. You'll see it.
May I suggest maybe you buy the other one also, just one, that's the brighter one you just found?
okay.
Maybe put it in the next one next to where hers is, so people can see the difference.
I don't think you can tell by looking at it. I mean, you can look at those two in here, and I really don't think from visually, you're going to be able to tell the difference. It's just that one technically has a little bit more illumination, but to your, visually, I don't think you're going to be able to tell the difference.
Really bright, old eyes, you see some.
No, they're both there. Take a look at them if you like, and I think you'll see that that's the
So
situation.
it's interesting to me because I was telling the board today at our executive board meeting, I came home about 9:15, 9:30 Monday night from University Village. So I was coming down University towards Commons Drive or whatever it is that goes into Commons and Commons. I think it's called that, over by Village One. They have produced more, installed more lighting in the apartments and the office buildings over there. And they are very bright lights. I mean, you could almost read if you were standing outside. So I think they're looking at this for safety. And it was one of the reasons we got involved in this. I actually am ready to make a motion that we follow up with this. I think the bulbs we should buy. I think that we should try and plan something, and maybe a few of us could get together to plan a way that we install or replace the bulbs that we have. And what do we do with all those old bulbs anyway? We'll have to call someone to come
that
pick
is-
them
We
up.
could donate them.
That is a
Or make them
concern,
available to homeowners who
Okay.
volunteer.
because the
We
old
get
bulbs
590 people
are,
to help.
CFLs, which means they have gas in them. They're like
Oh my
a
gosh.
fluorescent tube,
Yeah.
and
Well, I
you
think that-
cannot just
Yeah.
throw
Okay,
them
well,
away.
we can look into that too, but
So
I
so,
think we should proceed with the purchase of these bulbs. And I'm forming this as a motion that we at least proceed with the purchase.
Cleaned
and
up.
then We also, and then we also look into how we could do this the most effective and the most effective cost wise, involving our own residents.
Well, let's get the word out. We have 590 homeowners listening right now to this meeting, right? That's what I was.
All
no?
logged in Zoom. They are all there.
I am pretty sure we can get a lot of people together, maybe have I
Right,
don't know,
we-
ice cream party of some sort or whatever. And let's clean those globes and change those light bulbs out together. Let's do this.
Yeah, okay, we have a motion to approve the purchase of the bulbs And I'm going to use some liberty here, Linda, and also to investigate having a community involvement in changing the bulbs. Okay,
All that, Betsy?
may I have a second?
Got a second.
Ricardo, do you have a comment?
Just a comment, I'll just stand up. I've taken a lot of CFL bulbs to Amy that used to be, you just drop them off and they recycle. I think they charge you $2 per bulb, something like that. So Amy Hardware on Wattenville Community.
Oh, they're gonna love 700.
I think the city recycling transfer station in the south area will take these. I know they'll take fluorescent tubes.
And I think maybe we talk to our city councilman
Yeah.
about
Okay.
disposing of all.
All right, any objection to this motion that was made and seconded? All right, without objection approved. Thank you. Peter, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
But I want to know how many Nepenthians it takes to change a light bulb.
I think we're going to find out, aren't we?
Yeah.
I don't have time to wash my car, so, or even
Three.
take it to get washed.
3 to supervise and 1 to watch the contractor.
I'll supervise.
All right, let's go on to new business item C. Betsy, could you introduce this, please?
Yes, so this is for some landscape renovation in Zone 7. As you know, directors, each grounds committee steward selected areas in their zone that would benefit from some shrub removal and remediation. And it has been a bit of a back and forth process, but we do have a proposal from Carson. And the grounds committee voted to recommend it to the board. Our understanding is that perhaps the board is inclined to initially take care of phase 1 and 2, and I can take us to that proposal as well. So this is the area in question, area B, so it's an alley. And then if you come here to the proposal, phase 1 is actually removing the old material, cleaning up the area, preparing the soil, hauling away the debris and backfilling with bark. Phase 2 is setting up for new plants, and that's preparing the irrigation. And as we just saw from Nick, really important to make sure that we get the right kind of irrigation. So there's 2 costs there, one for phase 1, one for phase 2. And then we would hope that the board would approve phase 3, the installation of new material, new plant material in this very overgrown alley, within a couple of months. I think the idea is to allow people to see what it looks like after the removal and then go back and plant it. And I know our grounds chair is here too, if you'd like him to speak to this at all.
Steve, would you like to address this?
Yes. Just a review. This is something that we've talked about for some time, and you might recall that Zone 7 was next up for this type of work. And so we identified 2 possible areas there. This area B would have the greatest benefit because it's a high concentration of big, heavy shrubs. It's in an alley, a T-shaped alley. So it would have a major impact in the amount of routine maintenance in the future we'd have to do in Zone 7.
Okay, that it? Okay, thank you. Comments from the board, questions from the board?
Yeah, I did walk this area and I mean, I don't think it's that bad, but I definitely want to wait on, to the point of, I hope you can't hear the music in the background. I've got a teenager here. But we are hiring the landscape architect to give us some design advice. And I think, based on the irrigation and just other things we're going to be spending money on, I think irrigation takes priority. And then I just think we need some more, some design help. And I think we're going to get that here pretty soon. So I would say I want to hold off on spending this kind of money before we figure things out.
Other comments from directors?
I do have a comment. If you look at, it's actually phase 1 and phase 2, and then also phase 3. And the phase 3, we would have to agree that we will finish that up within a certain amount of time, because I think we really don't want to let this area be bare. And I would like to do this in a very efficient fashion to finish this area, so that the homeowners have a complete area and not just half or 2/3 complete. If we do 1 and 2, we really have to commit to phase 3.
So you are not in favor of approving any of this right now?
No, I am in favor of approving it with the stipulation that we will do phase 3 as well, okay?
All right, let me understand this. Right now, we have 3 phases. 1 is to remove material, 2 is to address the irrigation, and 3 is to do the planting.
Correct.
Okay, are you suggesting, in your opinion, that we do phases 1 and 2 as long as we can take care of phase 3? The committee
Yes,
recommendation
yes.
is within 2 months.
Yes,
Okay, all right. So that's actually,
that is a motion.
Mary has would you like to move that?
I would like to move
I
that.
haven't had a chance to comment.
Well, you can comment. We can,
have discussion after
yeah, we
this,
have discussion after, yeah.
So I second that.
All right, we have a motion. All right, Mary?
I feel very strongly that we need to be fiscally accountable to our homeowners. We just heard from Nick that we have irrigation issues throughout our community, and it's not going to be cheap to fix. And not only are they important for the plantings that we have, they're important for saving water. I think we're all aware that we're going to be paying for this water for landscaping coming up. Nick made it crystal clear that focusing on the irrigation will save all of us money. It's going to cost a lot. And so I'm unwilling to invest $66,000 in an alleyway when I truly feel we have a big ticket item that will benefit the whole community and not just one alleyway.
All right, I'd like to weigh in on this as well. Here we have an area that needs work. We have homeowners that would like to have work done. We have a proposal and a motion from Marcus to at least begin the first 2 phases, the second of which I'm hopeful, Mary, will address your concern about irrigation. Certainly, Nick would be involved in that. So right away, we would be doing more efficient irrigation. So I'm actually in favor of approaching this as the way Marcus has suggested.
Ashley has her hand raised.
Ashley?
Well, how many houses do we have back in there? Isn't it, I don't know, 15, 20?
No. Well, we can look at the map right here. Okay, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, so, I mean, I think that's fairly expensive, about $6,500 a house for removing some shrubs. And, you know, I'm not saying it's not cheap or anything. I just feel like we should wait a little bit so we go into it knowing a little bit more about what it is going to cost to fix our irrigation over here. And we have an improved plant palette, a little bit more design direction. As I said, I walked that area, even though it's kind of got that, it's a little dated, it's nothing egregious. And I would encourage other people. I'm going to vote no for it, but I've seen areas in our community that are much worse than this, and This is just not a priority for me to be spending $65,000, $6,500 a house.
Okay, any more comments from directors? All right, we have a motion to approve this, to do phase 1s and 2, and completing phase 3 within, I think, 2 months. Frankly, I think we will have information from our landscape architect by that time. Betsy, would you call the roll, please?
Baker,
Aye.
Gray,
No.
Tangeras,
No,
Cook,
Yes.
and Dasher.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. All right, the next item is for proposal for remediation of tree removal areas. Am I saying that right, Betsy?
Yes, we call it tree remediation because once the tree is taken out of the ground, it certainly needs remediation.
So these are areas, and I'm going to cut you because I'd like you to explain this, but we have areas where trees have been removed and what we have is nothing.
Correct. So proposals were made for the remediations, but that was when Coast was the landscaper. And due to their poor performance, the board did not feel they could, in good faith, grant proposals to them for any more work because they couldn't maintain what was already here. So unfortunately, the Grove was doing their job. They were identifying trees that for various reasons needed to be removed, and we gave them the work to do it. And over the course of these last 2 years, I believe it's a total of 58 sites, but today's proposal is just zones 5, 6, 7, and 1. And I can tell you that I have been at every one of these sites, as has Steve Huffman, the grounds chair, with the individual ground stewards. Some of them we've gone back to Oscar for, more clarification or a change, or if he didn't want a tree, we said we want a tree. So it's been quite a process, but all of these have been voted on in the grounds committee meeting and recommended to the board of directors.
Are these items where we have gotten complaints from homeowners who, are you going to fix my area?
Yes, I have one who just emailed me this week. She had actually written to us back in May, and
Oh.
we had nothing to offer at that time.
Okay.
But they've been looking at a hole right outside their front picture window for 2 years.
So I have a question, and that is, the next item in the agenda is about a tree removal, and maybe Steve can even answer this, a policy. So
So
are
this doesn't
we-
happen again.
are we doing this before we have a policy?
Well, here's the thing. These areas need the remediation, but the grounds committee has the same concerns you do. Like, well, how can we have 58 holes and we haven't done anything about them? And how do we keep it from happening? So the grounds committee is asking for permission to create such a policy for future removals.
But it could happen. I mean, that's a lot of trees, and they're not all going to come out in 1 week.
Well, they've already
And-
been out.
No,
They've
they're-
come
they're-
out.
They're gone.
Oh,
They've
these are the
been
ones they want the
removed.
remediation.
These are hole in the
Okay, and
grounds.
so
Yeah.
if we approve that tonight as a board, then we get a policy. Is this policy in conflict with what we're doing? I guess that's what I'm
No.
asking.
No. Okay.
Yeah, the two, this item and the next one are certainly related. And you wonder, why so much money now? I just want to tell you that our plans are probably, we will probably come to you a month from now.
With the same trees.
No, for not zone 2, because zone 2 has no remediation sites. For whatever reason, we have done that as we went along in the past. But
Because
zone,
I live there.
No.
but we will come to you probably a month from now with similar proposals for zones 3 and 4. When you sum it all up, it's on the order of $138,000. It's a lot of money, but it's not 1 year's worth of money. It is an accumulation of 3 years worth of work that got put off.
Okay, so I guess
And
I'm
so
asking Steve, though, is if the policy would be something that we'd see at the next board meeting?
No,
The
no.
policy about remediation
All right, the policy, we're asking your permission
to
having
develop.
to do with a policy, which is prospective. How can we
Right,
avoid this
right.
problem in the
That's-
future,
that's-
right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I meant.
So,
Yeah.
so we have two things, sir. We have a request to take care of some areas that need it right now, and actually that have been sitting there for a while. And then the second item immediately after this agenda is to give you guys the authority to come back to us with a
Policy.
policy so that we're not all backed up like this in the future.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the
got it.
two
I got it.
are related.
Right.
Right, okay. All right, comments from the board members?
I do have a question. Maybe Steve can answer that. So if we approve this, will you guys work with Carson to possibly implement different water valves, the irrigation at the same time too?
In many cases, included in these proposals, and you can actually see it if you look at the detail.
Okay.
Yes, some realignment of irrigation is part of the deal.
She's highlighted.
Yep. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting, some of them, the photos are a little hard to see where the problem is, but this is right next to Julie Lane's house in Zone 5. And almost as soon as she moved in, we took out 3 big birch trees right here because they were at the end of their life and there's just nothing there. And then in other ones, you have just really obvious like holes in the ground there. There was a tree there. I'm not saying maybe it needs a tree there, but it needs something because that's sawdust. That's
You
just a
know,
big hole
Betsy,
full
I
of
actually
sawdust.
remember specifically in front of Julie Lane's house there. We were standing there, I think was us 3, when I was on the grounds committee. We were looking at those birch trees and I talked, that was for my first zone walk with the arborist. And it kind of surprised me. I was actually rather shocked that we had a ground company for the grounds, and then we had the arborist, and they did really not work together. Not that they wouldn't want to. It was just our
Just two
contracts
separate
were
companies.
designed that they didn't really work together. And one said, "Yeah, we're going to take it down," and I assumed if we take a tree down, we also would remediate that area. And he just looked at me and said, "No, that's not our job." And I'm like, "So we're just going to cut it down and leave it at that?" Yes, that's what we're going to do. And that's what it actually happened. And I mean, I can't believe that we actually let this happen. Well, no, I understand we can because of the,
Well, Coast did even provide a proposal,
yeah, I
but
get it.
yeah, it
And
didn't get
we were smart enough not to go for that proposal, obviously. But I think we cannot let this happen again.
correct.
So that's why you guys,
Yeah, okay. I think at the time you were talking, our landscape contractor was Coast.
Yeah.
And the Grove was a different company
Correct.
altogether, which made the coordination more difficult. However, now we have Carson as our landscape
yes.
contractor, and a subsidiary is the Grove, with whom we've been dealing for probably 5 years now.
And it makes it so much easier because now they do talk together, and they can actually propose a complete proposal from taking a tree down to remediate again, and makes it
Yeah.
much easier and nicer. So thanks. Anyway.
Thanks, Marcus. Comments from other directors?
Yeah, this is Mary. I think this is vitally important. I think it's wrong that all these homeowners had to wait so long. There are 2 things I would like to add to these after listening to Nick. One is it's obvious that the irrigation system and the plants, even it says that, have to really, really match in order to have, I mean, what we're proposing and what we're hoping to do throughout Nepenthe is from now on to have drought tolerant, low water plants. And in order to actually get any benefit from that, the irrigation system has to match. And so in doing these remediations, there's 2 things: that the irrigation changes that are made for drought tolerant, low water plants, and the plants that are put in meet those criteria. And I think that we will have a really good palette of those once we meet with Garth. So I think it's very important to do this, but I do want that those two criteria is met.
Okay. Ashley, do you have comment?
No, but just, going back to the approval, for the zone 7 work to be done, I think, a lot of us, if we were asked, we don't like our hedges over in the driveways, and would I pay myself $6,500 to do that work? I would say no. I maybe spend $1,000 or $2,000, but I feel like the association is getting hit with a bill, and it all affects us. Eventually, it's like we're not feeling it ourselves, and so although I'm more inclined to approve these eyesores as they come. The other thing I asked a lot about when we were looking at this list of approvals with these holes where the trees were, and I asked, I'd like to see them replaced with trees. They don't always get to, but from what I'm told, the landscaping committee does, they are pro tree, and when appropriate, they will look at a tree. I think that's what makes our community so nice, is all these trees.
Ashley, I don't want to cut you off, but can you make your point so we
Well,
can?
anyway, I'm just,
Yeah.
I think I made my point. Just, I'm fine with this policy.
Okay.
Can we modify it for my changes, Betsy? So that,
You
I
want,
think you, I
Go ahead
think you
and-
could make a motion.
oh, okay,
And just state what you're saying, because I
Okay.
think we
All right.
understand.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I would like to make a motion that we approve these remediation sites with two conditions. One, that the irrigation that is fixed, replaced, put in is for drought tolerant, low water plants, and that the plants, in the cases where we're using shrub, well, actually in grass too, is drought tolerant and low water, so that we can begin to move as a community in that consistent
Okay,
direction.
I second that.
Okay. Any other comments from the directors? Any objection to the motion?
No.
Without objection, this is approved.
Okay, got it.
And I could actually, now that Steve explained the criteria, I don't need you, Steve, but I'm going to make a motion that we accept the request from the grounds committee to develop a criteria.
I second that. Any comments from the directors? Without objection, that's approved.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much on that. Okay, we have
I know, the boring part.
the boring part, fence proposals. Betsy, can you walk us through this quickly?
Yeah,
It's
this should
already-
be
it's
quick.
Already
We-
7:30.
Yeah, there are just 4 addresses. Again, as we always do, we have them evaluated by the handyman first. If more than 50% of the fence is bad, we go to bid. So these 4 homes, the fences all met that threshold. And I will tell you that Critical Path Reconstruction does like to bid our work, but they are busy on another job and they didn't get their bids in on time. So I'm sorry, but that you just can't, I didn't extend it for them because it's not fair to the homeowners. So this time you have JWS and Tuck Brothers Construction, and you have 1 bid from Critical Path for 1083 Vanderbilt.
So is there any reason we should not accept the low bid in each of these?
Well,
Oh, who is Tuck Brothers?
Tuck, yeah. So Tuck Brothers, Tuck is Brandon Tuck, who used to work for JWS. He spent a lot of time here at Nepenthe, and I have found out that, of course, JWS is not very happy that he has gone and he left with no notice. He went and formed his own company, and he knows the pricing that JWS uses. So it could be argued that he is trying to buy these jobs. So maybe on 1 or 2 of them, you'd like to try Tuck Brothers.
What's his quality of work?
It's very good. When he was here, he was one of the foremen on the last phased work that we did. So he was very active in phases 2 and 3. And you know, very personable. People really like him and his work is good. It's just that question of, you know, here's JWS that's been out here since 1986. They've always, you know, given us good work at a good price. So I would say maybe try both.
There's only 2 that are low, that Tuck Brothers is the lowest.
No, there are actually
No.
3,
Oh,
He's low on
the first 3.
the first 3 and not on the 4th.
Yeah.
Was like $60 on the
okay.
first
I
one.
don't think I don't know. I mean, that's an unknown.
Mhm,
And JWS, we know.
mhm.
Well, except that we do know because he was doing the work here.
Yeah, I will say 1417 Commons is, you know, it is facing Commons and it's a long stretch of fence. You might want to go with somebody you know on that one.
Yeah, there's only a $60 difference.
Yeah.
What about 605? That is significantly lower. 605 Dunbarton. That's
Yeah, maybe try Tuck Brothers for that one.
that one.
Yeah.
And then the other one's the JWS.
Ordering Chinese.
All right,
Yeah, I'm
Marcus,
good
would
with
you
that,
like,
I
Marcus.
have one comment.
Marcus, would you like to move?
Motion.
All right, and that is,
That 1, 2, the first 2 and the last one goes to JWS and the 605 Dunbarton goes to Tuck Brothers Construction.
okay, we have a second.
Second, I second.
Any comments, any objections from the board members?
So
No.
Ken might want to say something.
Ken, do you have something to say before we take a vote?
Go ahead with your motion, and I have a comment I want to make.
All right, any objections from the board members?
No,
No objection, approved without objection. Ken, go ahead.
Okay, it's, you're through the process already of inviting bids from contractors, so you wouldn't do this on these, but we now have an approved masonry fence option.
Yes.
Mhm.
And when homeowners come in with a request for a fence repair, we could make them aware that they could have a masonry fence if they pick up the difference in cost between
Yes. and it
Yeah,
was-
what a
installing
good
wood
point.
fence
Yeah, I think
and,
that's great.
installing a masonry fence. So for future reference, I like to recommend
Yeah.
that we
I-
give these homeowners that option.
I think that's a great idea. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if Cheryl Nelson's fence looks like it's almost done. Could we get a photo? It looks wonderful.
She's
If-
actually
Did a
here.
great job
Can we
on that.
find out like what the difference in cost was? Because she's
Oh,
online.
it's significant. but
it
it's
is
up to the
significant.
homeowner.
I know, but I'm
Cheryl,
just curious. I mean, if you're going to give the option. it'd be
she's
nice-
unmuted.
Hello,
Should we ask
Cheryl.
her?
You're on the
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah,
But
the
I
fence,
think
Oh, there,
you can't do this with the contractors that already have their bid ready.
Right, right. Okay, Cheryl, what, you want to give us the lowdown on your fence costs?
Yeah, it was about double what it would be. The estimate came in for the wood fence and the masonry was just slightly over twice that. So in effect, HOA and Nepenthe is paying for half of my fence and I'm paying for the other half.
I mean,
Thank
I
you,
would even
Cheryl.
be willing to subsidize a little extra because, I mean, I don't know how that would affect our reserve study. What's the useful life of a fence right now? 20 years?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that is one of the arguments I've heard from homeowners that are unwilling to explore a masonry fence because they feel they will continue to be paying into the reserves for fencing, but they probably will never get the benefit of it. So perhaps that is an interesting argument. You might want to think about bringing that to the board next month as a proposal, Ashley.
but I think we should
Okay.
still, I'm agreeing with Ken, that
Yeah.
we should let our homeowners know that that is an option.
I'll put it in the newsletter.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's see, I've lost track. We approved the motion, right?
We
We
did.
did.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. The last item of new business is citing proposals for 2 addresses. The question I have, Betsy, I looked at these proposals and they're all for T111.
I know. What
And we
they-
don't want to do that.
I'm not doing
No,
that.
and I only have their verbal that is an error, but some of these I got, way in advance.
So can we ask them to submit another proposal?
Yeah,
Or an amended proposal.
yeah.
What did we do
Um,
last time?
Verbally, they said to me, it's the same price, but I don't have that in writing.
Last time we approved one, assuming the price was going to be the same.
Mhm, and it was.
We
I
approved
would,
an
and they
overage.
lied to you? No, it was the same?
No, it was the same
Okay,
price. Yeah.
so I would suggest we approve these on the condition that they make sure it's not T111, it's Duratemp, is that what it is?
Duratemp.
Duratemp,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah, so that can be part of the motion.
Okay.
Um,
And we,
then
can we
you're ju-
authorize you, Betsy, to go like 10% over if they squabble, so you don't have to come back to us?
Yeah, it wasn't even an issue.
Yeah, I know
So-
it wasn't, but just in case.
Good, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So who do we choose here?
So let
Jeez.
me tell you a little bit about 2236 Swarthmore. The homeowner called and he had some concerns about visible dry rot on the front of his unit. And, I always want the vendors to look at the whole unit because there could be things the homeowner doesn't see, but that could be a problem. Unfortunately, the homeowner greeted Critical Path Reconstruction and JWS and said, no, it's only this stuff. And so Brandon built his bid and he examined everything. Part of the buildings in zone 2 and some in zone 1. I don't know when they did this. It was before my time. Instead of using T111 on some of the garages, they used like plywood and painted it. And it's a very bad stuff. And
Need to go
so,
check my garage.
yeah. So this
I'm going
particular
to too.
garage is all of that. It's some kind of a paneling, but it's not what we would use. It's a really poor quality product. And I think it was when they were trying to decide whether they should do a special assessment and they just had to get people's homes fixed. So, so eventually it is going to need that much work, but perhaps now we could just go with one of the lesser options and take care of the really visible stuff on the front of the unit.
So the lesser expensive one here is just on the house side, you said. on the-
Yeah, both of those, Critical Path and JWS, they're just on the front.
And the other one, does this have a detached garage? That's what this is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they all
it's
are.
covered,
Yeah.
it's covered in this
That's a
standard.
huge difference.
It is a huge difference. And eventually we're going to pay that, but it'll be cheaper because we'll be doing it as part of the
Right,
phase
one of
work.
the phases, yeah.
But I will tell you, that I've actually gone and looked at it myself on the front and it's pretty bad. You can see like ripples in the siding and then there's like a hole.
On the
one
front of
side.
the unit, not the garage.
Right, just this.
I've
front of
looked at the
unit.
garage, I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, when I'm walking my pups.
no.
Well, what would the board like to do here?
I think we should take care of the front at least and do
Yeah.
maybe the other part.
Well,
I-
who are we going to,
You want to use
Which contractors?
JWS for the front?
I can't remember what you told us about Critical
you wanna go
Path.
to
They're
Critical
good.
Path,
Well, if they're
Yeah,
good
they're very
and they're
good.
cheaper, why don't we give one each? Just go with the cheapest.
yes, correct.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
yeah,
So 1371 would be CPR and 2236 is JWS.
Okay.
I have a motion?
I make a motion that 1371 be Critical Path and 2236 be
I'll
JWS.
second that. Any objection from the directors? Without objection, that's approved.
We've lost our audience.
I know, I was gonna,
I told you it's the boring part.
this is time for the second homeowner
Maybe
forum.
Dawn wants to say something.
Say something, Don. Say something.
You're the only.
Well, we don't have anybody else.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Oh, John Donovan.
All right,
Oh,
Here.
you got to use a microphone.
Paint and do the dry rot
Hold it.
work on the
On the units.
units.
Yeah, it has varied over the years. We were on a 6-year cycle. We've made changes. The biggest one is the drip irrigation so that we no longer are spraying our siding as we used to do for many years. And when John was on the finance committee, they moved it to an 8-year cycle. So right now that's what it
Okay,
is.
because I've only lived here 6 years and they did it about a year after I lived here. So it seems to me if you're going to start doing it again, it's going to be less than 8 years, or maybe the time they
Yeah,
get to
by the
phase
time they
5,
get to you.
it'll be 8 years.
Each
Okay.
phase takes about
Duratemp
a
has a
year.
50-year warranty, so the
Yeah.
cycle should change.
Yeah.
The
it'll
what's
change
The,
again.
the new siding that we're using, the Duratemp has a 50-year warranty.
great.
So we might
that
push it out even longer.
Yeah, we should change the cycle.
Yeah, the guy that
Yeah.
invented the T111 probably should be tar and feathered.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
John
Still
Donovan.
the, John Donovan, you have your hand raised for the second homeowners forum?
Yeah. I put a comment about the parking in the chat earlier. I was just wondering what the plan
John,
is for
I'm
addressing
having a
that.
really hard time understanding
Can you
you.
hear me? Hello?
Yeah. John, it's a
muffled.
little
Really
bit,
Can you hear me?
muffled.
yeah, muffled.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering what the plan is going forward on the parking. If there's going to be a committee formed or if it's going to be added to an agenda in the future.
Parking.
You're still kind of muffled.
But you're asking if there's any plan from the board to address parking on Elmer's Circle?
Not at the present.
Okay. Steve, right? Steve?
Steve?
Okay. I'd just like to offer an opinion. I think it's pretty well informed opinion because I've been at this for a while. I'm very conscious that in terms of moving ahead with shrub removal and remediation, the board is divided. I mean, we had a 3-2 vote tonight. I want to apprise you of the consequences of delay. This time of year, we all look like heroes. Plants are in bloom, right? We know weeds are going to come up, but they haven't come up yet. We know there are going to be irrigation problems, but they aren't manifest at this point. And things go that pretty well until around June, when plants grow quickly, notably shrubs, put out a lot of new growth, weeds come up, suckers come up, and the 5-man crew can't keep up. And that was our experience last year. And so by the time you get to August, you got people complaining to Betsy that they can't back out of their garage because the shrubs are so overgrown they can't see, or their mailbox is blocked. And that's very likely to happen this summer, given that we really, are not going to have a big impact on these old overgrown shrubs. But I'm hoping that yet this year and into next year, we can have a much bigger impact. So by the time we come to the summer of 2023, we don't have the same problems.
And I'd like to respond to that because you make a really good points, and I know we're sensitive to that. We're trying to wrap our arms around making sure we're addressing water usage, maintenance. That's why we're addressing this with a landscape architect we're going to bring on board here very quickly, and that would give us the palette, I guess, word that Mary has used to give you guidance to be able to do some of these things without having this disagreement all the time. That's certainly my goal, is to have these unanimous, not split.
One of the goals, well, I mean, we can't guarantee what results we're going to get with the landscape architect, but we're hoping he can provide us, maybe we've got some very common problems, Mary pointed out, but like the driveways with the hedges, we've got along the fence, we've got the large windows, but to come up with a few solutions that are going to be cost effective, cohesive, maybe, address the watering, give some guidance for all of us, whether that be Carson, the landscape committee, just, and, give a consistent look and feel to our community. Hopefully we'll have refreshed paint and that it's going to look really nice is what my hope is.
Thanks, Ashley. Good points. All right, anyone else care to speak? because I got my hand on the gavel. We're adjourned.
7:49.
We could have taken a recess. Time because it's recess.
Oh, I
I'm gonna
didn't
ask
want to
to pee.
recess. I didn't want to recess.
I would have announced it.
Right, thanks. I could have, I can wait. I have good bladder control.
So we have to recess
I
for
still
announcement.
have good bladder control, even though you indicated